Sauerkraut has a lot of liquid in it, so it's going to help to create a nice simmer in this. And these ingredients will simmer and kind of marry together. Now you see the color of this, how light it is at this point. I'm going to show you the one I have already made. It gets more golden in color and just wonderful. If the liquid cooks down too quickly, which would happen if you have your flame too hot, then what you would do would be to add a little bit more water to this to allow it to cook slowly and not dry out. So I'm going to move this to the back burner here. Going to put a lid on it. We'll get that cooking to a simmer. We'll check our cranberries again. Cooking nicely. We're going to shift another pot over here. And let me show you what that bigos looks like completed. See, it's wonderfully cooked down, kind of almost, you could say, caramelized. Let's compare it in color. See, it's kind of naked looking here and really hearty and wonderful here. So we're going to just keep this off to the side to build our Reuben in a little bit. And now I just want to get my pork ready. So I'll cut a couple of slices of that for our pork sandwich. I think that'll be perfect. I'll put that off to the side. And now I'm going to make you two funky dishes. One more funky than the other. One is just kind of a common sense, yeah, that'll taste really good. So I think I'll do that one first. Again, growing up in Jersey City, there was, I'm going to be working while I talk. I'm going to cut up a little bit of mozzarella first. There was a butcher shop on Kennedy Boulevard when I was a little boy growing up, and it was called Walter's. And I remember my mom taking me there, and she'd sit me up on the counter. I'm just slicing up some fresh mozzarella. She'd sit me on the counter, and Walter would reach into the pretzel jug, this big plastic jug with pretzels, and he'd pull out a big long pretzel rod and he'd give it to me. And my mother would proceed to order what she needed for the week, I guess. And then she would lift me off the counter, and as Walter went into the meat locker, I would follow him and just want to see everything that he was doing. Well, Walter retired, and another gentleman took over the space who actually lived across the street from us. His name was Vinny, and he opened Vinny's Pizzeria. Of course, Vinny would have to have a pizzeria. And we knew Vinny well, and this one sandwich that Vinny used to make, which is what I'm going to make, was called mozzarella parmesan. And just such a simple, simple dish. How could you go wrong with mozzarella parmesan? It might sound a bit redundant in nature, but it was good. So Vinny used to put a little bit of sauce on, it was a marinara sauce. That's why I didn't say gravy, because the mozzarella parmesan was a meatless dish that he could offer people. So a little bit of the tomato sauce, and then we'll start to layer some mozzarella. I mean, this really isn't too terribly difficult. And then a little bit more tomato sauce. And at the end, after it's cooked, Vinny would always top it with a little more sauce when he kind of closed it up. He put a sprinkle of cheese. This was the alternative to the veal parm sandwich if you didn't want meat, especially if it was Friday. Little grated cheese. And we'll pop this right into the oven. Excuse me. Okay, now here comes the funky one. A little bit of olive oil. Don't laugh. I know people are going to say, oh my God, this is ridiculous. My dad could make anything taste good. He could cook a shoe and it would taste good. So I didn't want to tell you about the ingredients to this because I knew that you would think that it was something that you didn't want to see. But let me tell you, when he made this sandwich, we loved it. We're starting with some onion. Little olive oil. We're going to get that nice and tender. Our bigos is going to cook for about 3 days. No, it's really going to cook for a good hour. We want it to get nicely cooked down and kind of caramelized. We want to get these onions caramelized. Well, not really caramelized, but more tender. Sometimes if you had a lot of time, my dad would cook them down and they'd get all kind of golden in color, which would be the caramelizing process. Now, here's the biggie. Bologna. I know what you're thinking. But like I said, he could cook a shoe and it would taste good. The trick to cooking onions is not to burn them. Look, I missed one. Not to burn them and not to undercook them. If you burn them, they get bitter. If you undercook them, they're kind of overpowering. Let's check our, looking good, the cranberries. Let me get a fork and see if they crush down nicely, which they do. So this is really turning into a wonderful cranberry sauce. Boy, take a look at that. This is for our pork. Okay, that's done. And what I didn't tell you also, and I know I'm jumping back and forth, for the pork, I have some leftover stuffing that I happen to have in the refrigerator. So while the onions are cooking, I'm going to start to add my bologna. This is like fried bologna and onions. Yes, it's not that healthy, but you know what? My dad's going to be 82 this year. We ate some bad stuff. We ate a lot of good stuff, too. So you do everything in moderation. Julia Child used to always say, everything in moderation. One time when I was at an event with Julia Child, she was the guest of honor. The following day, I was told that people saw her in Newark Airport flying back to the Boston area, and she was sitting there with a can of beer and 2 chili dogs. Gotta love her. Everything in moderation, she always said. Bigo's cooking nicely. Everything's working. Let's take a look at our mozzarella parmesan. A little bit more.